This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Happy New Year, everybody! Welcome in to the latest episode of DocNJock, featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski, entering our 13th year together broadcasting. We got a lot to get into on this very fine Thursday broadcast. Michigan found their guy. I don't think he's going to be in anybody's DMs. I think that after this search, they found an adult in the room, and I really respect it. I respect the pivot. We're going to talk all about it. Kyle Whittingham is now the coach of Michigan. He seems serious. He talks the talk. Not the most verbose head coach, but I like it. Respectful. I think that he talks the way in which a football coach should talk, especially at Michigan. And finally, we'll end the broadcast. We're not going to call it a sour note, but in the end, the Lions are on a losing streak. They're finishing out the string. They're not in the playoffs. All the fears that everybody had before the season came true. And now, Doc and Jock will discuss the fallout. Because I'm curious, your reaction. Do you feel like Michigan had to settle? It is a little bit weird that, he was at Utah for so long, but I guess, when you read and learn about the situation, he only had a ceiling at Utah. It's a long time and not going to have the same level of resources that are needed now to compete in this new NIL era. And Michigan comes a-calling. And I do feel like maybe, if DeBoer was available or somebody else, I don't feel like Michigan settled. I feel like when, in the end, they found somebody that they can do their research on and everybody feels is a good coach, they're like, you know what? We may not have had him as our first choice, but he may be the best choice. Mm-hmm. Solid in his efforts last year. When you look at the numbers, number 2 in rushing, a tough physical mindset, has some grittiness, and understands rivalries, has worked with Urban Meyer, has an opportunity to bring a respect level back to the program. And maybe if you get the Whittingham tree involved in Michigan, maybe he doesn't see it out throughout the whole 5 years. He is 66 years old. But if you can bring it to stability, bring it to where the controversies end, and you get back to, I think the magic thing he said was not the physical grittiness. He said, spread. And I'm like, the first person I thought of when I read the word S-P-R-E-D, I'm like, my poor little cousin Adam, he's going to be so happy. They're going to run an offense. They're going to run a spread offense that actually has the quarterback throw the football. I'm happy for you, cuz. I'm giving you a little golf clap. I'm happy for you. Welcome to 2025 modern offense. What's your reaction to the new Michigan coach?
What do you mean we're not going to go 3 yards in a cloud of dust no more? We're going to break away from that a little bit. We're going to play a little bit more up tempo. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Here's the thing. I think he's the right guy at the right time. I think it feels a little bit safe. And sometimes safe isn't bad. Safe isn't wrong. Are there higher profile names out there? Are there maybe sexier guys that you might want to see wearing the Michigan Block M hat and doing your press conferences? Sure. I think this guy fits. I think he comes in at a time where you have a program that has been so unstable for so long. And the football program itself, you just look at it, it's its own little microorganism of the University of Michigan Athletic Department. The athletic department we've talked about for a long time has a lot of instability, and it has a lot of moving pieces that don't necessarily go the right way. They don't necessarily do the right things. The football program itself has a bunch of that going on. From the time that Jim Harbaugh stepped foot on campus, it trickled down and it all exploded and crashed out with Sharon Moore taking a butter knife, threatening to kill himself after sitting there impregnating a staffer. Absolutely bonkers. Like, I wish there was a 30 for 30 on the Michigan football program with Jim Harbaugh taking over, actually with Brady Hoke leaving and Jim Harbaugh taking over, all the way up to Kyle Whittingham's press conference. Like that's just what I want to see, because there's been so much wrapped up in there. And it's just been bad. It's been a bad look for the university. It's taken my love of that football program, and it has really just kind of crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. I'm not as invested in that football program as much as I used to be prior to all of these scandals, prior to all of this madness. It leaves a bit of a black eye if you're a Michigan football fan. So I think he comes in, he helps settle, and he helps steady what has been a very strenuous, distasteful, dishonest, ugly football program for the last couple of years. I think he comes in, helps clean all that up, and I think he's the right guy to do it. This is a guy who's hard nosed. He's a player's coach, but he's stern, if that makes any sense. He's not going to BS you. He's going to have demands. He's going to set expectations. And if you don't meet those, well, you're going to find yourself probably playing for somebody else. And I think that is what this football program needs right now. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the turnover with the players, who's going to be on their way out, who's going to be sticking around. It sounds like Haynes might be leaving already. They haven't even had a conversation. So that to me was a little bit interesting when that came out the other day. But I think they got the right hire, and it's going to be incumbent on him to put the right pieces in place, get the right players here. The one thing that he said that I liked is he wants to be physical. He wants to be a physical football team. Wants to punch you in the face, and then he wants on offense wants to spread you out. Those things work well for me, right? If you can win in the trenches and you can be physical and you can punch people in the face, I think that's fantastic. And then you know the deal. The game of college football has evolved. Spread offenses are all the rage. You spread out those defenses, you're physical, you can lean on them, and you spread them out with guys who are talented on the outside where your quarterback can throw the football to a wide receiver. When was the last time we talked about a Michigan wide receiver? I can't remember. Jabril Peppers doesn't count because he wasn't very good. So I'm excited for the direction that this team is headed, and I'm excited where they're going. The thing that I find weird is it really feels like this hire has split the U of M fan base, has split the football fan base. I don't know if I've seen it this fractured since Rich Rod was singing Josh Groban at that football banquet. I don't know if this works out because you yourself have seen it with Michigan State, and I've seen it with Michigan when the boosters and the fans and the everybody who is supposed to support the infrastructure of the U of M football program aren't all rowing in the same direction. Things fall apart fast, and you have people saying different things. It gets to the press. The next thing you know, the press is leaking things. Do you see this working out, or do you see this being maybe a patchwork, a small Band-Aid until possibly the next guy comes in?
No, I do see it working out. I think that first and foremost, you have experience. First and foremost, you have the talent, you have the resources. So Sherrone Moore had success, and he had
true. And he was a horrible coach.
Yeah, and he had emotional issues. So the foundational pieces are in place. And the Sherrone Moore thing, just real fast, you got to give 60 seconds to it. The stuff that you're hearing is crazy. Like, he was having emotional outbursts, and we talked about it last week briefly. The fact that stuff just kept, I'm still shocked, that stuff kept quiet when you start to hear and you peel back the layers of all the emotional instability that he had. The fact that he was roaming around in the same apartment complex as the players with the lady. I'm like, dude, all you had to do, you could hide this so easy. All you have to do is go to a hotel, pay for it. He's roaming around in his car. They're all like, is that Coach? Yeah, man, Coach is getting it in. I'm like,
dude, what a hot mess.
What a hot mess express.
Like I said, a 30 for 30 would be fascinating. You could spend 30 minutes of the hour long 30 for 30 just on Sherrone Moore.
Yes, it's wild. But yeah, I do think he cleans it up. I think,
dude, how would you like to be Wink Martindale in those meetings where he's getting berated and just ripped apart by a crying Sherrone Moore? If I'm Wink Martindale, I'm like, I left the NFL for this shit.
Right?
What are we doing?
Right? I would have ran right to the media. I'm like, we got to do some podcasting here. We got to talk about this. And yeah, you'd think that he tried maybe to do it to politic himself for an opportunity. You would think that maybe he could have been a leaker. You know what I mean? You could be like, hey, if he did it last year, he might have had an opportunity maybe to coach the team. But that's here nor there. The defense had some issues too that I think is concerning. But in the end, I do think when you have the financial resources, you have the support, and you also too, Michigan has the foundational pieces and has always done it right. They run the football. They build in the trenches. They understand what's important. The one thing that they never really adapted to, and that's really been the word of the college football season with Michigan State, with Dan Campbell and the Lions, and with Michigan, is adapting. You adapted. You paid a quarterback $2 million, fine, whether he deserved it or not. But then you're like, we're going to pay someone $2 million to hand the ball off? Like, test it out. Like, test out the Ferrari. Okay, I'm not saying go 150 miles an hour on the causeway, but I'm saying at least throw the ball and see if he can handle some responsibility and handle the opportunity to see if he grows and learns and has the opportunity. But when you're safe and you want those 8-9 wins and you know you can bank on it, it hurts you in the end against a team like Ohio State where you need to throw the ball. So in the end, you could have taken a couple losses to even State or an Iowa in the hopes of growing a quarterback for the greater good. It's a rookie season. There's no real expectation other than mistakes, learn, see what happens. So that's where Sharon Moore, with his head focused somewhere else, totally messed it up. It's like you would have been fine if you would have played the game the right way. You have a $2 million quarterback. You got to throw the ball. You got to evolve. And also, too, not to have a wide receiver outside of Marsh. I think that will be taken care of. You're going to start buying players. You're going to start getting players. And I think with Justice Haynes, I think that Michigan got a 5-star, like an elite, I think number 1 or number 2 in the whole country running back. So the writing's on the wall that dude got paid. And and these players are smart. Like, they know they can figure out, okay, how much did this recruit get paid? Oh, he's going to make 1.5. That means my ass is on the bench. So he can figure out that he can also get in the transfer portal and make a payday too. You're basically free agenting, putting yourself as a free agent every year, which I get. These kids are smart. They now know the deal. I was still floored because a week ago, sitting in LCA, and, the greatest college basketball coach that I've ever seen, Tom Izzo, is sitting there talking to me about, I had to talk to a player's agent and his mom. And I was like, Oh my God.
It's nuts, dude.
It's wild. Tom Izzo had to sit down with, and he's like, this agent was cool because he talks back and we have a good conversation. I was like, man, now the players have agents and they're getting advice. But it's just Michigan, I think that they have the right pieces in place because year one might be a little bit of a pain in the ass. That schedule is looking rough when you got some of those pieces in place. But a lot of them are at home at Ann Arbor, so you'll get a first look. But I do think
they get to play. I think it's their first 8 games of the year at home. So you do get some home cooking. But yes, the schedule is going to be tough. Here's the thing. This is the one thing about Kyle Whittingham. The guy is like a 10-win producing machine.
Yes.
And if he ain't winning 10, he's usually winning 9. So the guy has the ability to win football games. And I think he's the guy who can come in and, like I said, steady things out and get the most out of players. And he's already kind of lobbed a little bit of a shot across the bow over to Utah, where he was like, look, we're not going to go actively recruit guys, but if guys head into the portal, we got no problem signing you, bringing you here. So basically, he let the guys on his Utah football team, basically pulling a Kurt Cignetti, right? Because I feel like that's now the blueprint. That's what you have to do if the coaches are going to move around and you've got stuff built someplace and you want to take some of that with you, you got to poach from those rosters. And Cignetti has done it to an absolute T. Cignetti is a beast in the Big Ten right now. 2 fantastic seasons. I think Kyle Whittingham's taking a little bit from that book, and he's like, look, we're going to play fair. We're going to do things the right way. We're not going to come actively recruit those players, but if they want to enter the transfer portal, we will definitely take a look, and you've got a spot on this roster. And I think that is fantastic for a coach coming in, trying to integrate his old system with the new system and new players. And again, I think he gets the most out of the guys that he coaches because he doesn't have his head in other people's DMs and he's not scrolling looking for OnlyFans chicks. So I think that works out well. All that being said, where does Kyle Whittingham and where does Pat Fitzgerald rank in the breakdown of head coaches in the Big Ten? Because I kind of feel like there's this bit of a tiered system. I think up at the very, very top, you've got Ryan Day, who is pretty much supplanted as the number one guy. He is the dude. He is the Don of the Big Ten. And then right behind him, it's Kirk Cignetti, who, like I've said, has done things so incredibly well and so impressively, just moving into Indiana. And look, Indiana's never been a football powerhouse. And the last 2 years, they have put they just put you on notice. And he's put the Indiana football program on the map. And then after that, you've got Dan Lanning, and I would even say Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley has things going at USC. I think USC is going to be incredibly tough in the next couple of years. And I think that's kind of your tier one. Obviously, Ryan Day's number one, and I think Kirk Cignetti is very close behind him at number two, but that's your tier one. After that, it's kind of you've got this stacked middle ground where I think Pat Fitzgerald and Kyle Whittingham fall into place. And then you've got your bottom field feeders like your Mike Loxley's, your Greg Schiano's. Those guys are definitely towards the bottom in the Big Ten. But where do you think that a guy like a Pat Fitzgerald, because look, this is one of the first times I can remember where we've got two brand new head coaches taking over at Michigan and Michigan State. Where does Fitzgerald and where does Whittingham fit in to the pantheon of Big Ten coaches as you see them right now?
Yeah, you look at it and you obviously clearly say that Ryan Day's at the top, right? And you realize
number
that,
one.
Yeah, and James Franklin, even though he couldn't win the big game, was among the best. But unfortunately, now he's gone, so that's good. You look. What's crazy is, and I think too, it also hits to my thoughts about the Lions and coaching and stuff like that, because it's possible. You get Mike Vrabel, he goes, and 1 year he has success. Now there's factors. Do you have a quarterback? Do you have the schedule? Do you have lineage there and buy-in? But Kirk Cignetti goes to Indiana, and I'm like, they were irrelevant. Like they were always my favorite on the schedule. Like, okay, when are we playing Indiana and Illinois? We win.
It was an automatic win.
Yeah,
auto win.
Yeah, yeah. He goes there, and all of a sudden, I'm like, it's like Kirk Cignetti. Everyone sees Kirk Cignetti, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And then we get Jonathan Smith, and part of the reason Jonathan Smith got fired is Kirk Cignetti. He comes in there and turns around the program, finds a quarterback. And that's the number one thing is you got to have support, you got to have unity, and you got to have a quarterback. Where Jonathan Smith comes in, and I think that's what gets him fired, is you pay a quarterback $1 million, and in 1 year he couldn't develop into a quarterback that can throw the football forward. Aiden Childs regressed. That's horrible. So I think that Dan Lanning is doing some great things. Lincoln Riley. So to your point, I think they're right in the middle. 6, 7. 8, 9. Right in the middle of the pack there in the Big Ten. Not horrible, but not great. And that's a good starting point. They're not horrible. Yeah. They got experience, but they're middle of the road middle of the road head coaches with decent potential to land quarterbacks that will help them. And I think that number one thing that Whittingham did was he related to Underwood. That's a good start. He's staying. He's not in the portal. So you go from there, you can quickly get into the top 4. But it's tough to crack. Lincoln Riley, he's got cachet, but look, they haven't made noise yet.
I think you put it perfectly. I think they're probably 6, 7, and it doesn't matter to me. You can flip flop them.
Yep.
Whoever's on 6 and whoever's
right.
at 7. But like a guy like Kurt Ferentz, right, runs a fantastic program, has one of the toughest defenses in the Big Ten. If he could just evolve offensively, which we're hoping Whittingham does with Michigan, they would be a program that would be challenging Ohio State regularly, but just offensively, they can't get anything going, And look, I don't believe in Matt Campbell. I don't believe in Matt Rule. I like Jed Fish, but he's still building a program in Washington. You know what I'm saying? And Luke Fickell, how he still has a job in Washington, I do not know. And I don't know if PJ Fleck, I think maybe PJ Fleck has hit his ceiling. So I think 6, 7 for both Michigan and Michigan State's head football coaches is the perfect spot. They're right there near the top of the middle. I think these are two programs that are going to possibly see some growing pains next year, but I think in the years to come, they're going to be better for it. And I think it's an exciting time for both of us, right? As a Michigan and a Michigan State fan, seeing these football programs under these new coaches and what they're going to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving forward, when you see at least the opportunity, I think, for a clean program. First of all, if Fitzgerald can avoid some hazing, listen, if you start to see some of the boys hang out by the Red Cedar River, just start running as fast as you can and be like, no, we're not doing, no hazing, and no, we'll give you money. What do you want? No hazing, and that's it. That is it. And for Mr. Whittingham, if anyone offers you the blue chew or you start getting distracted in Ann Arbor, you realize, focus, Sharon Moore.
The blue chew. This segment of the Detroit Sports Podcast now brought to you by the blue chew.
Listen,
and Hims.
listen, we have to talk about it now. Mel Tucker and Sharon Moore fell to the temptation. They fell to the snow bunnies. Guys, listen, it's funny, and I don't know whatever your feelings are about it, but if you just want a interesting perspective to say, Terry Foster on Woodward Sports and Dr. Umar had some hilarious, and I took it as hilarious, descriptions of the snow bunny terrorists that are destroying African-American head coaches. It's really unique in that perspective. Go check it out. I laughed, but it was one of those deals where you got to avoid the snow bunnies, the chocolate chip bunnies. You got to avoid all the bunnies. And if you can stay focused, it's hard. I get it. It's hard, literally and figuratively. It's just focus on football.
It's hard.
Yeah, focus. These football coaches in Michigan have to focus. The snow bunnies and the chocolate chip bunnies are very enticing. If you can focus, I think, the word of the day is adapt and focus. Then I think that these coaches should find their way. But listen, Ann Arbor might not be as tempting as East Lansing. So, Mr. Fitzgerald, focus, and I'll tell you again, focus, and things will be good. Now, things that are not good, cuz, man, Christmas was ruined in a way in terms of football, cuz that was bad. National television audience, 4:30, everyone's excited, and you get the shit show football game. Max Brosmer was a quarterback that basically looked like Aiden Childs and looked like year one Bryce Underwood. You couldn't throw the ball, couldn't move the ball. Then you got the Lions, and they couldn't move the ball, throw the ball. It was a poor game, and I just felt myself sitting there with the computer. Everyone's around, watching, drinking, having a good time. I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm like not motivated to write. I'm like, what is this? And I was just mercifully saying, end this game so that this season can mercifully end. The Lions are not a playoff team. They're not good. And in the end, Brian Flores is an established defensive coordinator. He smelled the fish in the water. He saw the chum, and he was the shark. And he was like, he must have been having a Sharon Moore orgasm in his clicker room in the watching film going, oh my God, we're going to get 5-6 sacks. He probably called in Van Ginkel and was like, Van, if you don't get 3 sacks this game, you're cut. Like, they took advantage of the offensive line. Sewell didn't play that well. Disappointing. A lot of mistakes. Jared Goff turning the ball over. It was unbelievable. Because what did the loss mean? It ends the season. You actually, if you would have won the Steelers and Vikings game, you would have had a chance. Some of the outside factors, but from now on, it's clear. We can point to 2025. I know that everybody says, well, this has to happen on the outside, that has to happen on the outside. But you guys are forgetting the one part that is the most important part. The Lions got to do the winning part. And when you involve must-have wins in the Lions, no matter what year it is, you gotta kind of put the pause on the excitement because the Lions didn't come through. And in the end, everybody knew it; they weren't going to come through. At least I'm thankful you and I kept our heads on straight, and we were questioning, like, really? It's been win-loss for 10 games. All of a sudden, it's just going to automatically go to 3 straight wins. In the end, it went the opposite way, cuz to characterize it went 3 straight losses. The dam broke. That's how I characterize it. The dam finally broke. Too many injuries. The schemes were not good enough. The lack of practice time. And in the end, it's not an excuse, but 3 days rest for a football team that needs every millisecond of practice time killed the Detroit Lions. The NFL, the schedule was terrible. And in the end, the Lions fall 23-10, embarrassing game. They are eliminated. Shockingly, it went from NFC Championship game, first round exit, and
15-2, man.
15-2,
sitting on their couch,
and they regressed. It's sad. It has a feel of a funeral type situation. How did you process it? It's just really sad that it went this way. The Super Bowl window with this group is over, but you got to quickly restart and get it back going in 26.
Yeah, look, I think this was a huge missed opportunity for this team. The league set this up for a win and you're in, for a showdown for the NFC championship, for the NFC North championship, and you blew it. You crapped the bed. Somehow you end up losing to a backup quarterback in Minnesota who has trouble throwing the ball down the field. You also lost to J.J. McCarthy, who has trouble throwing the ball down the field. And this was one of those games where look, I don't obviously the defense did a good enough job. There was one play where Jordan Addison basically took it to the house on an end around, but the defense gave you a shot to win this game. It was your offense again costing you in a game that you must have. It was your offense, and more specifically, Jared Goff costing you a game that you have to win. You need this win to keep going. Look, Green Bay didn't handle their business. They end up losing. Chicago didn't handle their business. They end up losing. And this all set up perfectly for you for this upcoming weekend. And yet, here we are talking about this team, the team that everybody has invested so heavily in, the team that everybody feels like is closest to the championship, and now they're sitting on their couch. They're going to be at home. And look, I feel like the coaching hires, if you go to you look at the coordinator positions, I feel like they went out and they took a look and they're like, yeah, these guys will be fine. There was really no effort put in. You promoted from within for the defense. And look, I think Calvin Shepard might one day really work out as a DC. I just think it might be a little bit too early for him. All right. John Morton's not an OC. It didn't work when he was with the Jets. It didn't work here. He's not an OC. Doesn't give you enough. Dan Campbell, I feel like, was stretched a little bit too thin. And because of that, the effort on the field when he has to do his play calling suffered. His in-game management suffered. Jared Goff, look, I don't think players don't put effort in, right? I don't think that they don't not show up and don't try hard. But what we've seen the last couple of weeks has been poor, to be polite. The offensive line, and look, this is a Brad Holmes construction project. Brad Holmes constructing this offensive line, there was little to no effort really put in that. You slap a Tate Ratledge in there and you're like, good, we're fixed. No, bro. It's not fixed. I feel like the effort level put in to keep this playoff window, keep this Super Bowl window open just was not there. It's the equivalent of my mom going Christmas shopping for me and giving me gifts that I will never, ever use. That's what this was. And that's frustrating because right now, the way it sits, your Super Bowl window is gone. It is shut. The closest this team, those words that Dan Campbell spoke when he was on the podium after the 49ers game, where they blew that game, this might be the closest we ever get. Right now, it's ringing true. Because when I look at this team and I look at everything that you have to do, I don't think you get it done in an offseason. We talked about it last week. I said, I don't think you get it done in one offseason. There's too many holes all over the place. And you don't have the draft capital because you traded picks away all willy-nilly and you've moved all around in the drafts and you've not hoarded those resources. Instead, you've invested in a wide receiver that, yeah, he might have been your most productive wide receiver in this one specific game. But overall, what was the net positive of him? He didn't give you a whole lot. You could have went and you could have got a wide receiver, an undrafted guy off of a bushel bin, and he might have gave you more. Or you could have just maybe stayed where you were at, saved some of your draft picks, didn't have to move up, and you probably could have got him. Instead, Brad Holmes does Brad Holmes things because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Well, now your smarts are going to be tested because you've got to revamp an offensive line. You've got to revamp a defensive line. And that's where you need to start. You need to start with both of those. And in that order, O-line, D-line. Because if your quarterback's not protected, he's shown that he can't do anything for you. He can't lead for you. So you need to address that offensive line, and you need multiple pieces along that offensive line. I heard a press conference question with Brad Holmes the other day where they talked about Tate Ratledge possibly moving back to center. Is he going to play a guard? And Campbell was so non-committal about it. Like, you don't know what you have with him. You don't know what the hell that is. And it's been a whole season. That's not good. That's not good at all. So O-line needs to be addressed. D-line needs to be addressed. You need to rebuild your secondary because, look, Terrion Arnold, not good. Ernest Rakestraw, he's played like 48 snaps in 2 years. The guy can't stay healthy. He's a non-factor at this point. That's another wasted draft pick. Brian Branch is going to be done for at least half the season, if not all of the season, with an Achilles tear. And Kirby Joseph has my dead grandfather's knee. So good luck with all of that. All right. And that's before you really start to hone in and try to fix your coaching roles, right? Like you need to figure out who your offensive coordinator is going to be. You need somebody who can layer plays, who is able to get the most out of Jared Goff. Because right now in that game and just kind of watching how this offensive line is constructed, he's the Achilles heel of this offense and this team because he does not process well when things are breaking down in front of him, when he's under pressure and under duress. Most quarterbacks aren't good. He, for some reason, is extremely bad. Like on the scale of like doable and just piss poor, he is closer to piss poor when things are breaking down in front of him, and he's got to scramble. Also, we know he's not the fleetest of foot. So, like, his mobility, he's not going to be able to buy himself time. So, like, you've got to make sure things are set up for the guy so he can excel. You got to run play action, right? Like, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you need to use him. I feel like not using David Montgomery. I don't know why the hell you paid him. Why you extended him? What was the point? You hardly used him this year. There comes a point where I feel like you have to utilize the pieces you have, and David Montgomery almost seemed to be an afterthought. I look, next season, if you're looking to save some money, because you need to save money all over the place because you don't have enough of it, because you're going to be in a weird spot where you might have to restructure Jared Goff's contract, and if you do that, you then have him for the next 4 years. You can't trade him. Like, you're stuck with him. So you need to make a hard decision there right away. Are we keeping Jared Goff? Are we sold to him? Is this what it's going to be? Because if it is, then you've got to go and restructure that contract to free up some cap space. And then I would get rid of David Montgomery, save a couple $1 million there. I would possibly move on from Aleem McNeil, save quite a few dollars there because he was piss poor. And I don't know if it's just him rushing back from an injury. I don't know if this is what he's going to be, but he was not good. You can cross off the dead body of Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, Levi Onwuzurike. All those dead bodies go into garbage can, go over there. All right, you save some money there, but you need to then restructure this this defensive line. You need to help Aiden. You can't keep asking him to do what he's doing. You need to give this guy more weapons, more tools. Again, I don't think you get it all done in one season. I think it's going to be a 2-year process. And if you want to go into next season, you're like, hey, look, we'll keep Calvin Shepard. We think we've got a diamond in the rough here. He needs to be shined up. This season was a learning experience. Next season, he's going to get better. So by that third season, where our playoff window is now back open, our Super Bowl window is now back open, sure, I'll live with it. But you still have to figure out the OC. You still got to figure out what you're doing with your offensive coordinator. Because my perspective is Dan Campbell hurt this team when he took over play calling duties. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell hurt Jared Goff. Dan Campbell, at a certain point, as much as he holds everybody else accountable, he needs to be held accountable. There was a point in this game where I'm like, Dan, you got to pull Jared Goff. And he just kept running Goff out there, and Goff just kept turning the ball over. At a certain point, you got to back up for a reason. Today's not Goff's day. Just say, hey, kid, not your day. Go sit down. See if you can get something else from somebody else. Because what we seen was just a disaster from the head coach and from the quarterback. And a lot of this, if not all of this, in my perspective, falls at Dan Campbell's feet for what he was running on the field last Thursday. How much blame does Dan Campbell have to take for all of this? Because it was his decision to hire John Morton. Didn't work. It was his decision to promote Kelvin Shepard, and kind of a mixed bag. It's his decision to leave Goff in these instances where he's just turning the ball over ad nauseum. And he's the one who's calling the plays that is essentially getting Jared Goff killed. What I didn't understand watching this game on Thursday, and what I haven't understood watching these games as the season has worn on and we've gotten longer into this season, because the offensive line's so beat up and you're just rotating cast of characters. Why aren't we doing more 3-step drops, getting the ball out? Why aren't we handing the ball off more to your running backs? Why aren't we just moving the pocket? Like, I don't need Jared Goff to run a whole lot, but he can take 3 steps to the right, 3 steps to the left, roll the pocket, get guys moving, and just toss the ball. Do a sweep to the outside. Get guys in motion and get them moving downfield. I just feel like the play calls from Dan Campbell have not been good. Set Jared Goff up poorly, And again, it was his coaching decisions and his coaching hires that I feel like really hamstrung this team. How much blame do you put on Dan Campbell for this season?
Yeah, 45%. I think that going into this season, it was going to be critical. All the concerns that the outside world had came to fruition. Offensive line concerns wasn't good enough from Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes gets 45% and Jared Goff gets 10. Brad Holmes didn't give the offensive line a chance to really have success. You should have went with a free agent center, not Graham Glasgow. The game that Glasgow had against the Commanders should have told you enough that it wasn't going to work. The Commanders game last year, when the Lions were eliminated, Glasgow has been on the decline, and I think you patchworked it. We're hoping that Graham Glasgow was going to shine, and he was okay, but not at the level of somebody that would have been a veteran that you could have had. Brad Holmes should have drafted Cooper Beebe instead of Ennis Rakestraw. Simple as that. You correct the problem, and you should have had more foresight about Frank Ragnow. Dan Campbell, you can't go into a Super Bowl window with John Morton and Kelvin Shepard. You just can't. It's unserious. That is ego. That is like, well, we have the same system, and we're just going to have new people run it. No. Experience matters. John Morton, your friendly podcaster that you're listening to right now, asked Dan Campbell after the first week's loss, it doesn't look like you're running the same offense. Is it feasible that you can? In the end, no, it's not. Ben Johnson took the Lions' mojo to the Bears. And he's like, I just need an offensive line. Go get me one. And he got his general manager to get him a free agent left guard in Joe Tooney that is amazing. 4th-round pick. Lions could have did that. And you went and got Jonah Jackson and somebody familiar. So they rebuilt their offensive line through free agency, spent a lot of money doing it. So the Lions didn't act like, and because like I said, I've said it a couple times now, if you gave them bourbon, I think that they would tell you they planned, because if you go and look, if you find time, go and look at Brad Holmes before the season media session. I asked Brad Holmes, why do you think this team is a Super Bowl team? And his answer was terrible. Like it was, he didn't sell it well. And I truly believe they didn't believe that they would win a Super Bowl. They feel like if you just, on the surface, these guys are football minds. New offensive line, you're getting 2 new coordinators. Everything has to go right. Like they knew this would be a step back year, and they probably planned for it. Like they know, because you know how I know? Because I know Morton probably will go because it's so bad, but he might stay with the organization. But you need a play calling OC. But they're going to keep Kelvin Shepard. Like they're going to let him probably come back for year 2, because this was something that is going to be reflective of, hey, it's not all his fault. He had all these injuries, No, you got out schemed by a lot of offensive minds. You tried to play man-to-man defense, and every time you tried to play zone, it didn't work out. There's miscommunications galore, as evidenced by you have a new guy in Jalen Mills, and he's still running up the gut while Addison's running towards the other way. Like, no. Even if you have a new guy, I know you don't have the practice time, but he took the worst angle possible, and it killed you at the worst possible time. So Dan Campbell, 45%. Brad Holmes, 45%. Jared Goff, 10%. And I want to ask you this, cuz, with my last question. Jared Goff's taking a beating, as always, but he does have, it's 50-50. I think he's polarizing, just like Matthew Stafford. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are fair. They say, look, we know Jared has weaknesses. He's not as athletic. Brian Flores exposed him. So did Vic Fangio, and so did Steve Spagnuolo, and so did Jeff Hafley. Everybody that has a monicum of a brain defensively figured out that you don't have to sack Jared Goff. You just got to get him off of his spot, and all hell breaks loose. So listen, it happened. They took advantage of the offensive line woes. He's not mobile, not athletic, can't evade the pocket to the degree that Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams did, which made me so jealous on Sunday. But people are rightfully saying, listen, if you take him off the roster, there's probably a 3-win team. But I look at it from the other perspective. With Jared Goff on the roster, I don't see a Super Bowl. So there is no happy medium. So you know what that means, cuz? We're fucking trapped. We're fucking trapped. And this is the feeling. And just now, before we came on the air, I was trying to rack my brain what the fuck to describe this as. It's fucking football purgatory. You're fucking stuck in purgatory. And today was the first day. Like, I've been going through it, and I was telling the audience at the Lone Wolves podcast, I said, I gave up on the Lions after the Eagles game. I feel good. I'm like, oh, you slappies waited forever. DocNJock and Lions on SI, everybody in the outside world told you this ain't a Super Bowl team. It was clear. But today, before the recording, as everybody's beating me up about my Jared Goff takes, I'm like, I don't know how to feel, but I feel this sadness. What the fuck's going on? I thought I was already over it. What happened? And the assessment has now come over me. We're fucking in football purgatory. You can't get that much better because you invested $50 million, and the fan base is piss poor scared that they're going to go back to 3 wins. They don't want to give up what they have. So basically, it's if you play poker, it's like you're going into the final table with the 6th stack, and you got 400,000 chips, but the chip leader has 5 million. And you're like, oh, like anybody that advises you is going to say, listen, you got to shove all in, you got to gamble, but you're not going to win the tournament. The guy that goes into the final table with 50 million chips and you got 400,000, you know you're going to lose. So as we sit here today, I feel sad. Like we're in football purgatory. You're going to get to the playoffs. Next year, I wrote a couple times on X at Detroit Podcast. I said, you're going to have Goff throw 50 touchdowns. You're going to have a piss poor schedule. But the 5 turnover beast is going to happen in the NFC Championship. Yep. Guys, it's going to happen in the Super Bowl. Like the best predictor of future events is past events. And anybody that's in the Super Bowl against the Lions has to do is turn on the Bill Belichick tape against the Rams. And you blitz them. You pressure them. You get him off his spot. You don't have to you just need one guy to win. And most teams that are in the Super Bowl have a good defensive line. So, guys, the 5 turnover beast is now dormant. It went away, but it activated itself last year against the Texans and the Commanders, and it activated itself against the Vikings in an elimination game. It's in there. So I just feel football purgatory. I'm on a QB hunt for the next guy. It ain't easy. I'm on day 5. I'm sharing it on X as I go along. It's not easy. You got some quarterbacks in college that have good arms. You have some quarterbacks that are elusive, but you don't have the right mix. You have the right quarterback with a good arm, but he's 6 foot. You have the big lumbering quarterback at 6'4". He's talented and elusive, but his arm is not as good. It's hard, and I get your guys' perception of it, but I just say I'm okay. I'm never scared of having a 2-win season to try and take 3 steps back to get the ultimate prize of the Super Bowl. This fan base is never going to be on, I think, our page, but what's the fair level of assessment with Jared Goff? It's sad because the fan base is just scared, but it is loud. Like the fans at Ford Field booed. You are getting a lot of messages to radio stations, and I am getting some support, but not to the degree that they're going to try to pull off a Rams trade to get rid of him.
Yeah, look, I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's possible. You have to realize,
cap.
He's due $55 million next year. Like that guy is getting $55 million bucks. That's why I believe that they're going to have to restructure his deal. That's why you're going to be stuck with him until 2029. You know, you won't be able to move out from that cap number for another 4 years, which is why, to your point, they have to make a decision. They've got to figure out what they've got here and what they want to do. Do you want to go into this draft, and do you want to possibly take a quarterback? It's supposed to be a pretty deep draft class for quarterbacks. So do you want to go get one and put him on the bench and let him sit behind Jared Goff, and then in 2028 you can move on from Goff because the base price and the cap number is a little bit more reasonable? Sure. But right now, next year, you're stuck with this guy. You can't do anything with him because the dead cap number is astronomical. It's almost $64 million. Right now, it's $96 million. So, like, your hands are tied. And this goes back to Brad Holmes being a little bit too cocky, being a little bit too sure of himself, and, again, investing a lot of money in a lot of his own guys. And now, as a team, their hands and their feet are tied because they've got so much money wrapped up in guys that they've drafted and guys that start for them that it's tough to get out from underneath those contracts, right? Like with Jared Goff specifically, you can't just move on. You can't just trade him. You can't do any of those things. Your only option is to let his contract continue to run out or renegotiate it. And by renegotiating it, you then, because of the rules, you're then tied to him for another 2 years. Okay, so that's fine. And that's probably where they're going to go. That's probably what they're going to do. They'll probably do that, try to free up some cap space. But you got guys like Kirby Joseph, who we don't know if he'll ever be able to play again. You've got a guy like Brian Branch, who's due for a contract, but you don't know what he's going to be when he comes back from his ankle injury. You've got a complete offensive line that needs to be restructured. Like you're stuck right now. Like that was why when they gave all that money to Jameson Williams, I lost my mind because it was unnecessary. You didn't have to do that. that wasn't needed. David Montgomery getting a bump and getting extra years added on. You didn't need to do that. Like those things weren't necessary, but they went ahead and they did it anyways. And so now you're kind of in this little bit of, like you said, you're in this purgatory because you're not quite in cap hell, but you're really close to it. You're tied to a quarterback who you're not sure is going to be able to ever win you the big game and is prone to these 5 turnover games that cost you games. And you've got a bunch of pieces all over the place, but nothing really is complementing each other right now. You got a ton of money invested in an edge on your defensive line. He's got no help. You got a ton of money invested in a D tackle who's been missing all season. Your secondary has all taken gunshot wounds. They're all dead. Like everybody in your secondary is dead, and you lace them up with fat contracts. Like DJ Reed's not good, like at all. So what are we doing here? You're going to have to make decisions now on a tight end who's going to be needing a contract, a linebacker who's going to be needing a contract. And look, we've already talked, like you need to find at least 3 more pieces for your offensive line. And that's if Manu's not the guy or Mahogany's not the guy. So like you're right. You're stuck in purgatory. They have to figure out what they're doing with Jared Goff. In my estimation, I think the best thing to do, because of just looking at the cap structure and what everything is, and because of where you're going to be drafting, I probably restructure his deal. I look to get out of it in 4 years. All that being said, I'm looking to restructure other people's deals as well. I also wouldn't have signed Kirby Joseph to the deal that he got. I wouldn't have signed Jameson Williams to the deal that he got. I wouldn't have extended Montgomery. So this is why this is a conversation I've been waiting for us to have. We'll save it for next week because I've been waiting for the season to be over because I want to talk about Brad Holmes and I want to talk about how he's created most of this mess. Like we talked about Dan Campbell today and how a lot of things are Dan Campbell's fault with what we see on the field. But even more so, it's Brad Holmes' fault. And the situation this team is in is because of Brad Holmes. And I want to save that conversation for next week. But if you're asking me right now, gun to my head, I'd probably restructure the contract and we'd be stuck with him for 4 more years. Yeah. And I'd figure it out from there.
Yeah, you got to rebuild the offensive line. You got to draft better. Listen, they have to have as simple as that. With our last couple minutes, they have to have a serious offseason. Serious in free agency. Pay Linderbaum from the Ravens to be your center. Pay somebody to be your left tackle, and then draft much better. And you got to use your draft picks to get players that will play. And so that's why 2026 is not guaranteed. But in the end, you got to get back to the playoffs. You're going to have a 4th place schedule. So number one thing is lose to the Bears. Lose to the Bears. And that's what you got to do. And that's the goal. Get that 4th place schedule so you can play the Cardinals and the Titans and the Giants and go from there. So it's just one of those deals where you're in football purgatory. It could be worse. You do have opportunities to draft. You're going to have 7 picks, I think, this year. You might move around to get more. So let's see what happens. You're going to probably be around 14, 15, and that gives you a chance. So we'll see if there's opportunities to be aggressive. But in my opinion, the plan is fire the coordinators, get 2 experienced guys, and go from there. Get guys that can ball out. Maybe you need to steal from Ben Johnson, somebody that can call plays and learn. Maybe it's Press Taylor or somebody that knows Ben Johnson and knows the system and come back in and run it for Dan Campbell. But Dan's not a play caller. He is a CEO, and he needs to be involved, not calling the plays, because the team fell off, and everybody knows it. That's what happened. That's the story. Dan hired the wrong offensive coordinator. He had to step in, and by stepping in, you maintained the level of offense, okay, not proficient, but everything else fell off. The details fell off. And so that's the story of the 2025 season. That's a wrap, guys. 8 wins, 8 losses heading into the finale. And the best way to put it was, it's an average football team. That's what you have in 2025. Major regression. Hopefully major regression results in major changes, that your scout expert that is cosplaying as a general manager grows up and becomes a general manager, which means no more developmental picks, no more passing on legends like Puka Nacua and Kobe Turner. And every pick doesn't redshirt. This isn't college. You don't redshirt. You got to play. You drafted, you play, or you're cut. Simple as that. Let's have a serious football operation. Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Many blessings on a great 2026. It's going to be great. 2025 was awesome for the podcast. 26 will continue to grow, and we continue to bring you fair insight, analysis, snark, jokes, entertainment. We appreciate everybody that's listening. All you got to do, go to your favorite podcast place that you find your audio content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and we appreciate everybody that's listened, subscribed, interacted. It means a lot. At Detroit Podcast, and again, at Adam RSTROZ. I can't wait to fire it up next week when we can talk a little bit more about Michigan State, what the hell's going on in college basketball. We got two potential number 1 and number 2 teams. It's amazing. So we got to peek into other things as well as the Red Wings and Pistons. 2025 is gone. Let's welcome in 2026.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.